Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel here on YouTube, also streaming live on Twitter. We're here back to talk about the Challenge Australia. That's right, we're going to talk about Australian Survivor, Survivor, a couple of weeks ahead. The Challenge Australia.
You're in the future already, mate.
Thinking of the future already. I feel like the fans have already done that as well.
Moved on from the challenge.
They've moved on. And before we get into it, I'm your host, Chris. This is the Big Kahuna BK here with us as well. Yeah, it's not been pretty. It's been a bit of a massacre, to be honest.
As far as the ratings go?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of mentioned that to me.
Lately has been good. I mean, we had a finals that was, I think the finals is good. I think that some of the recent episodes were great, but Australia completely disagrees with us, Chris.
Well, we'll talk about it because I kind of agree with Australia on some things. I'm kind of feeling like I'm in good company. The Daily Mail of Australia says Channel 10 gives up on the Challenge Network and it hasn't promoted the TV flop for 2 weeks after it plummeted to 72,000 viewers. And this was 2 days ago prior to going into the finale. And then it just got a little bit worse because after that, we also had more news that dropped. And basically the viewers weren't there for the finale. The Challenge finale draws 0 viewers in major Australian city, making it the least watched reality TV finale in history, only being able to get 11,000 viewers in total, and no one in Brisbane actually watching the show, Kahuna.
That's so crazy. In all of Brisbane, the entire metropolitan Brisbane, 0 viewers live. It's so insane. Has that ever happened before?
No. Well, they're saying that it's a record low, so I'm assuming that it's never happened before.
Do you think it's the worst reality show in history that Australia's had?
I think so. Well, I think so. You're gonna
no. As far as the show standing,
the quality of it.
Yeah,
the quality of it definitely not.
No,
the quality,
right?
the quality of the show, the production of it, but. This is one of the things that I wanted to talk about. And for those that are joining in the live and for those that are listening to this later on, the main aim for this was to just talk about the show as a whole, our final thoughts on it, what we thought worked well, what we thought didn't work well. And obviously we'll dive into a little bit of the finale and the ultimate winners. And also towards the end, there will be a section where I will warn people about spoilers because I will spoil who's going to come back for the global showpiece that we're going to see later on, I think, next year. I do have spoilers on who's coming back, but that's as much as I know because I will be covering, one thing I can tell you, Kahuna, is I'll definitely be covering the global showpiece. So I don't want to know who's going to win, but I did want to know who's on the cast, and 2 shock people from the season are coming back that I didn't expect to see.
Kiki
and then, well, don't say anything about the 2. We know that Kiki and Troy is definitely coming back because they won the show. But then outside of that, there's 2 shock people coming back where we'll talk about that, but we'll warn people before then. We'll say, get off if you don't want to be spoiled about the cast. Don't worry, I won't spoil anything more than the cast because I don't know anything other than the cast. But overall,
isn't spoilers. If you're out there on the internet, cast isn't spoilers. Like, you want to know at least, right?
Yeah, but some people really
results. I get it, but cast.
I agree with you, but some people are like purists, so they don't want to see anything until the promo stuff is out there, and that's fine. We won't spoil it before the end of the podcast. But yeah, getting back to your question, was this the worst show in Australian reality TV? I don't think that this was the worst show.
We've had some bad TV over the years, Chris.
Yeah,
reality TV wise, we've had some bad TV, and I don't think this fits into that category. But oh boy.
Yeah. Well, I had a lot of time to think about it because last week we couldn't do the recap, and obviously that gives you more time to think about it, and that was fully my fault because I ended up getting too busy at work. And I'm going to be honest, I was deflated on the show because I felt like we were going a bit through the motions, and I find it very hard to talk about something passionately if I'm just not feeling it. And I wasn't really feeling the Challenge Australia during certain pockets of the season. If it wasn't a show that I was covering and I was doing exit interviews for, I don't know if I would have wanted to do the whole show because it did miss it for me. And I was thinking about why did it miss it for me? Because the concept of the Challenge is great. I love the show, The Challenge. I love what it's about. And I think that there was an opportunity missed with the cast. There was an opportunity missed to really get to know some of these people as well. Because, with Australian Survivor, with Big Brother, the edit is slightly different. They give you the backstory, like, hey, this is the person at home, this is their life, this is sort of what they stand for. So you kind of feel like you're behind these people. Where last week was very dull for me, and then this week I kind of only started getting behind people this week, where I was like, man, I like Troy. I've got my person, because I didn't have my person for so long in the game. And then finally I was like full Dirt Ninja super fan number one over here, wanting him to go and win this whole thing.
I think it helps that you're saying that you've got. I mean, there's probably a little bit of recency bias, but the fact that you got so excited in this week's episodes also happens to correlate when there's one of the most epic eliminations we've seen
Oh,
in the
100%.
challenge, right?
Yeah.
And then the final, like we're going to go into the results and stuff, but I thought the final, maybe not the format, like the actual challenges or the pit stops within the final. I don't necessarily know if they were as grand and as epic as we've seen in the challenge before. It seemed very like self-contained and almost budget and cheap the way they did the final.
I agree.
But
And
the
funny enough,
actual
the
challenges
finale,
themselves, yeah,
funny enough, the finale was popular with the fans in Australia. All the comments online that I've seen, everybody
I
loved
thought
the finale.
it
And
was
I
good
agree with you.
though.
It's not one of the, it was good, but it was not like on the same scale of what you would see on the MTV
Correct.
version of the show, or
And I
even
find
what we
that
saw on
interesting.
the USA, because the USA was even more grand as well.
Yeah, so no mountains, no like
Nothing.
anything like,
Yeah.
which is interesting, but they chose interesting pit stops that I thought worked well.
Yeah,
It
for
didn't
sure.
have the scale, it didn't have the grandiose of things, but they actually chose three, a fairly condensed one. They didn't do like the first night was a bit weird, right? Like it was
Yeah,
straight
we'll
after
talk
the
about the
thing.
finale. We'll talk about the
Okay,
finale.
sorry,
I
sorry,
do
sorry,
want to. I do want to
sorry.
track. I do want to track it back a little bit, right? To sort of my
Let's go.
train of thought around the cast and I think that there's something here, because for a period there I was thinking, is it just me because I don't have this affiliation to the Batchy people? And then I started talking to people. I obviously have friends within the global community who watches the challenge, where people told me they were really finding it hard to find their people this season. They didn't feel like they were getting behind people, and most people did not like the Batchy group, and the Batchy group was the one that actually ended up dominating the season,
Yeah.
which I think made it very hard for fans to stick at. But towards the end, I really found my people, because not only did I like Troy by the end, Connor really grew on me. Every single week, every single episode, I was like, yo, I really like Connor. He's not the physically most imposing person out there, but he's winning stuff. He's using his brains. He's strategic. I wouldn't mind seeing Connor back. I started liking seeing more of Brooke, who was a favorite of mine going in, and towards the end felt pretty heartbroken for her not to be able to pull it through. And then Kiki really started growing on me, because I was like, man, she's struggling with this injury and she's continuing to push through. The one person I never really got any kind of love for, and not that I dislike this person, was Karen. I felt like they were really trying to push Karen down our throats, like this is a big player, or this is a big person. They had that whole storyline with his girlfriend, which, by the way, do you think that was the production that planted that whole thing? Because who would have told her?
Yeah. I mean, she would have seen it on TV, right? She would have seen it eventually, and then
Yeah,
had a conversation later. I don't know, like maybe like
fake drama.
because I noticed they did that for him. They did the my fiance for Troy, and we wanted
Yeah,
to, and Kiki as well. But I was like, oh, they're doing the little bit of the winners edit background thing here. Is that what's going on with Kieran having that story
yeah,
put in there in the fight? I was like, wait, is Kieran? And then I saw one for Troy, I saw one for Kiki. So I don't know, like. I think they wasted Kieran a bit. I think he could have been a big character, but maybe they were hoping. And this is completely theory. Like I don't know for sure, but knowing Kieran from The Bachelor and knowing what he was like on The Bachelorette, sorry, and Bachelor in Paradise, and you've already heard his reputation preceded him. We saw it in the
yeah,
first 11 minutes of episode
yeah.
one.
He's potent.
And I'm wondering if they were hoping to get more of episode one shenanigans from Kieran throughout the series, thinking he's going to be a big character. He messed up in episode one and then kind of reined it back in, and he really became a non-entity character
Yeah,
wise throughout the story. So I'm wondering if maybe it's partly because of him. They were like, we got this hornbag. He's going to go absolutely crazy through this house. He's going to be a huge character. And then he's trying to make it up to his girlfriend that he cheated on. So he just brings it right back, has a quiet season, and kind of becomes another
he was boring
nothing
in the
character.
confessionals
He
throughout the
was.
season. Didn't give
He
us
was.
much. The exciting people, the people that we kind of got behind, all of them left really early. So it kind of, I felt like there was a period in time there where I didn't know who I was shouting for. And I think, the rest of Australia felt the same way. The numbers don't lie. At the end of the day, the consumer, the customer, they're always right. And if they're turning away from the screen and they're not watching the show, then something somewhere didn't make sense. And another thing that I wanted to sort of pick your brains on around that is, we've got this production team from America who's doing an Aussie show, and it had a very American flavor to it, the way that it was produced. And maybe they're more used to having very big household names that do the show over in the America, where they don't need to explain the backstory of a Bananas. They don't need to explain the backstory of a Nani. They don't need to explain the backstory of a Tyson or Angela, or a lot of these people, because they're kind of like superstars over there. And they took that same formula, I felt like, maybe, and they try to use it to a certain degree in the editing department for this show, and it didn't translate. Like, I really felt like the cast and the editing department let this show down.
Interesting. Like, I think that's a really good point. First of all, I don't know how familiar your normal person in America is with MTV The Challenge. I think the CBS version made a big thing, but I still think the flagship
I
show
saw some stats on that, by the way, probably about a week ago or
because
so, and they said
I'm
that
going to
it's
be wrong
about.
here, aren't I?
No, you're not. I saw stats that showed that about 400 to 600,000 people watch an episode over there. So it's not as high as you would think, but that's not anybody that watches it afterwards via digital platforms, which we know is a
Right.
massive getter for them as well, which would make sense why they were so desperate to move the show onto CBS and onto the online platform of Paramount Plus, because they knew that would widen the audience. And I believe they were getting 1 point something million viewers per episode. So it was a big boost to their viewership numbers when
Yeah.
they put it onto those platforms. But again, I think that there is a very loyal fan base that has been built for many years that follow the show religiously. You only need to look at the amount of followers that these people have. Like Bananas, how many people does he have that follows him on Instagram? Probably a couple of 100,000, maybe even 500,000. I don't know. It'd be a lot of people.
I think Johnny Bananas is the exception to the rule, though, right? He's been able to cross over to slightly mainstream success and host other shows because of his run as Bananas. But you mentioned someone like Nani. You mentioned someone like Anissa. I don't think your average American reality TV show is a big fan of these people necessarily.
Well, have a
And the
look at
shows,
this.
here we go.
442,000 people follow Nani.
Yeah, but there's 360 million people in America.
I know, but it's still a big following. Like, who was the biggest?
And she's been doing it for 20 years, Chris.
Who was the biggest person this season that came on for Australia? Would it be Brooke, maybe? Brooke Jowett? Like, was the big name that they got.
As
And
far
she's
as
on 48,000 followers on her.
I reckon someone like a Kiki or Bachelorette bikini
Kiki.
type model would have more than Brooke, maybe. I don't know. I could be completely wrong.
93K.
Yeah, there you go.
So there is a big difference in the amount of people that I feel like the
have 10
fandom is
times our
different.
population.
Yeah, and also my point isn't just based on that one episode. My point is more, they've had this following and they've done multiple shows.
Years, yeah.
And because of that, lovable Nikki, welcome to the live stream. She says she's here for the Nani drag.
The
Listen.
teeth. What about her teeth?
What I'm trying to say is that I feel like there's a lot of people that they've gotten comfortable with the fact that they don't feel like they need to explain too much about their backstory, but still
they
there
never
is
have,
also,
though, right?
Yeah.
Have they ever done that?
Yeah, but
Fresh
my point
meat
isn't
seasons, all that sort of thing.
my point
what you're
isn't
saying is in Australia we need that.
we need that. If you look
Yeah,
at
yeah,
Australian
okay.
Survivor, and if you look at Big Brother, and you look at how those shows are produced, and I could be on a wrong thing. So anybody from Australia listening to this, if this South African immigrant is not representing you, the audience and the viewers, right here, and I'm just maybe on my own thing here, I feel like I always see the trend where on those shows they build a story around them, and how they are as human beings outside of the game, and they try and kind of humanize them like the everyday Australian that you may know, so that people get behind them.
That's true. That is true, and I think I wonder if maybe the order of eliminations may have played some impact on that, because I
Mm.
wonder how much they would have built around a Jack or a David, the Cyrell, rather than like Conrad getting to the right before the finals and stuff like that. Like they're just boring. So, but like, let
Yeah,
me
like
ask you a question
this is
then.
the list here of the people that left. So when you look at that, everyday Australian man Johnny Esto went really early.
He went
David
early.
seemed to be a really big character very early on. Jack was big. I don't know if we lost that much with Billy as a TV personality at least,
No,
but Audrey seemed to be a lot of fun. I wanted to see more
she
of
was.
Audrey on the show as well. Obviously, she got in a bit of trouble very early on, which made it entertaining. And then
Did you
Sorrel
see
obviously
her
was a
after the
massive
fact?
character.
Her
Sorry?
social media thing after the fact?
No, I didn't.
I saw that last week. I thought it was interesting. Audrey went out on social media and was like, look, I don't know why Kieran's saying nothing happened. If he's trying to cover stuff up in the shower and it was only a minute and nothing really happened, whatever, but I know what happened. And I was like, yes, I knew it.
Jeez.
Audrey.
Well,
She's
like, listen, call him out if he's being fake, I guess, in regards to that. But didn't she already lose her man, and now she's like
That's
trying to
right.
like ruin
That's what
Karen's
she's saying.
relationship as well?
She's just saying I'm being honest with what happened. I lost my man.
Yeah,
I know what happened. Like own it, kind of thing. I don't know, but she did say, "Yeah, Kieran's full of shit,"
yeah,
which is
yeah.
great. Let me ask you a
Now, a lot of
question,
these
Chris.
people here, the bedroom
Oh, sorry.
alliance
Yep.
of the likes of a Ryan, Sugar, Emily, these people, they went out pretty early on in the game. And from what I'm hearing from talking to people, obviously we had Connor in the live stream confirming that some really bad stuff were happening behind the scenes. And then I've also now heard from other people that I spoke with, about some of that drama. And they said that the TV show would have been better if some of that stuff was shown. If they showed how bad the rift was between Batchy and also between the Bedroom Alliance, and apparently there were people that were, they felt threatened for like their own safety in the game because of how bad the Bedroom
Wow.
Alliance was,
I don't
and
like
they
hearing
felt like
that.
that would have made bigger TV. And I'm a little bit annoyed that they didn't show it because I've also had fan opinions from people who really love some of those people that were being, from what I've heard, very toxic because it wasn't shown to that degree. So it
Yeah.
was very
So
confusing for
they
us as
get away with
fans.
it. They
Yeah,
get
so they
away
get
with it.
away with it.
Right.
And they're getting a lot of love online right now.
Well, we know I've seen the Emily and Ryan potentially engaged and
Yeah.
confirmed together, and that's so they're copping a lot. But yeah, let me ask you this: if you took this show, right now, because we're not normies, you run an actual podcast, are involved, you're dealing directly with Channel 10, you're paying attention to the ratings, you're reading the social media, and there's a potential, and I'm not calling you out here at all, Chris, but I'm putting it to you. I'm putting it to you
Here we
because
go.
I feel like it happened to me, right? And
Yep.
I was trying to stay positive about the show, but I feel like when I kept seeing the ratings, when I kept seeing the negative stuff, and I feel like that played into like, you know what, they're right. This cast is shit. Yeah, this is bad. Yeah, it's not that good. If you watch this in a vacuum, no influence whatsoever, and just watch the episodes as they were presented,
Yeah.
do you think this is a better like would have I don't know, I can't say it would have done better, but I think it's better
I think I
than
would have
what it's
stopped
got.
watching it.
You
I wouldn't
reckon?
have finished. I wouldn't have finished the season if I
Oh,
didn't cover it. 100%. I didn't have my people, and for me, what I always find with reality TV is that I have to have my people that I was getting behind. Now, that doesn't mean that by the end of the
interesting.
season I didn't get my people. I got my people. I actually really enjoyed Troy towards the end. I really enjoyed when he lost Marley and became the underdog. And some people came at him because of his strategy of not going against Batchy Alliance. But I don't know if this was on the interview that I had with him or if I spoke to him after the interview, because sometimes you do talk to people even a little bit more after the interview still. And if it wasn't on the interview, then people will hear it here now.
That's
And
where all the
Troy can
gold happens, is it?
and Troy can confirm it as well, is that he said that people were coming at him on social media when he came back from the global showpiece. He saw people coming at him because then the show started around the same time, I think, and they said, why didn't you target the Batchy Alliance? It was a dumb strategic move to be on your own. But he said the Bedroom Alliance was that bad and had no game, no strategy in regards to trying to play it cool, that they forced him to play with Batchy. He couldn't
That
play with them. Even if he wanted to play with them, they were that bad.
that wasn't the interview today, so that's after. That's gold. Because I did listen
Yeah.
to the interview. Good job, by the way. Really great interviews again. But that is fascinating.
Yeah,
Because
he,
that's
he,
what
he
Johnny
said they were
was.
that bad. They were that
Johnny's
bad.
Bedroom Alliance.
Yep.
Johnny Survivor. Johnny's supposed to have
Well,
previous
Johnny has
strategic
said he's not
experience.
a He's told me he's not a strategist.
That's
He's like,
fascinating.
I'm not a
Should have shown
strategist.
that.
That's not a play. Yeah,
They
and
should
that's
have
what he
shown.
said. He also says he wished they showed more of that so people could understand. Because, like I said, there are people that think that the Banshees were the bad people for having strategy and voting these people out, but the Banshees didn't have a choice. It was also just the case for them of of survival.
Wow.
You know,
And that's coming from someone who is essentially neutral, right? He looked at it and made that call based on what he's seeing. So fascinating stuff.
Troy, welcome to the live. He says,
Hey,
yes, the riff was too much. So it was impossible for him to work with that side. And I think that also forced the show to be, like I said, kind of predictable because you knew Batchy had the upper hand. You knew Troy and the likes of Brooke and Connor and Marley, they were playing the middle game and they were never going to mix it up because they didn't have a legitimate other option to play with. So they couldn't make because that's one of the things that I think a lot of the times on reality TV, we hate it when in Survivor you get to emerge and it's just the one tribe dominating the other tribe the whole time. You don't
begonging.
want to see it.
Yeah, but the I guess the good thing about the challenge though, right, is that no matter what happens as far as the politics and the strategy, and you may be on the end of the numbers like Troy, the good thing about it as a challenge is that you have control. Whether it's in an elimination or not, you still have a chance to get out of that spot via your own skill, right?
Yeah.
In Survivor, you get voted, you're done. There's
Yeah.
no coming unless you go to when they Redemption Island and blah blah blah, and you play your way back in. But it's like having a Redemption Island to play your way back in after the vote every episode. So someone like Troy can go, you know what, I can ride this because even if I might not be on the right side of the votes, and now that the Bedroom Alliance is gone, they're all after me. He still
Yeah.
has a chance to go into elimination and bring himself back, right? So there's always that, even though you want to avoid it at all costs, there's still that backup plan. There's still that chance that even if the votes are against you and it's a foregone conclusion and it gets predictable and we're going to see it go elimination after elimination after elimination, if you come back from that, then it's a different story altogether. You take out one piece from the alliance, if you win the elimination, then the alliance gets broken and fractured and stuff. It changes. So it's a thanks, Troy. Yeah, big fan, literally big fan. But yeah, like it has that chance where you don't have to put all in. I would have voted it. Yeah, there you go. Because you know that the votes are more important, and he didn't have to put all his chips with the Bedroom Alliance because he had that chance to be able to come back after. And I think that plays into the strategy a little bit. You still
Yeah.
want to avoid it as much as possible and build those alliances, but when you don't have to blow up everything and backstab and betray because there's still a chance. First of all, don't come last in a daily, and you've got a chance. And then even if you do get voted in, you still get another chance anyway. So that's always a good thing about the challenge, I think, that it comes more down to it incorporates everything, not just the social, but then you have the physical to save yourself if the social lets
Yeah.
you down.
100%. And I mean, a person like Troy, and I'm not just saying because he's in the live here, a hell of a lot of respect for him. Because, like I said, when Marley left, I was like, he's the underdog. They're going to try and throw him in. But he kept winning. And he went on to win 4 daily challenges this season. He went into the arena for what I believe personally is probably the best elimination, one of the best eliminations we've seen in recent times on any challenge season. So, be
Recency
that,
bias for sure, but for me, it was
yeah,
absolutely one of the best I've seen.
yeah, I mean, it
You know what
reminded
it
me
was?
so
It
much
was
of Derek
and
Kaczynski
Joss.
going up against Josh, and it was that underdog approach. But the big difference here being that Troy was a part of this season the whole time, so Derek came in fresh against Josh that season. He didn't have to do all the dailies. He didn't have to worry about
It's
the
true. He
body
was a walk-in.
recovering.
Yeah, yeah.
He was a walk-in. He was a mercenary that season. So it's really impressive. But before we talk about that elimination, when you look at Troy's record, when you look at what he did, his body of work this season, right? And I think that this is why the season would be so much more fun to go and watch back now that you know that it had a satisfying conclusion. Like the ending, the beginning was fun, the middle was a bit of a drag for me, and then the ending was very good. Again, because it had a satisfying conclusion for me. On a personal note, where would you put Troy as a player going into this global showpiece? Because I reckon he's going to be a massive threat because he's also shown he can work with anyone.
I just want to say, Chris, and everyone listening, that in the preview episode of this
You
very
did.
podcast,
You
I
did.
picked Troy, didn't I?
You did. You were on him. You were onto it, and I did the classic thing that everybody does and judge the book by its cover. And I looked at him and it's like, he's not physically that big. I don't know how it's going to go if he has to go in a hall brawl or something like that. And listen, I eat my
Well, look,
words.
it could have been
He did
very
extremely
different
well.
in a hall brawl, but this challenge essentially was, or the elimination. Sorry, look, on the grand scheme of things, Troy, like you said, I think he was allowed to go under the radar a bit this year because of the way the alliances worked out. Right, we
Mm.
said that Brooke and him and Marley could cruise the middle and fence it, and he's probably lucky that the bedroom alliance was so toxic that the Bachelor alliance had their entire focus on them. Right, going into something like the global challenge, I do think he's going to be underrated. He'll walk in with that size.
Even as a
I
champion, even as the champion
even
of
as
the Australian.
because they're all champions, right? And no one in Argentina, UK, or America gives a shit about Australian TV. Even Australians don't, apparently. So I think he does have the opportunity to go in a little bit under the radar and show what he's capable of.
And they didn't see his performance. They didn't see
They
him
didn't.
win that elimination,
Yeah.
against Conrad, a guy that was so much bigger than him, and they didn't see his total body of work being great at puzzles, being good at the endurance stuff, being, just a well-rounded athlete. I would kind of, the biggest compliment I can give him, in my mind, is that not personality-wise, but capability-wise, I would put him in the same category as like a Jordan Wisely. I feel like he's that type of athlete on the show, and I think Jordan is an amazing athlete. Obviously, personality-wise, there can sometimes
Not
be a
the
lot to be
same.
said for that, but I think I'd kind of put him there. Where would you sort of put him if you had to compare him to some of the challenges over in the US?
I think his only weakness is something like a hall brawl, right?
Mm.
Where I
But
mean,
that's for Jordan as well,
having
right? Jordan, I
yeah,
think in
yeah,
a whole
absolutely.
brawl, he did
Having
win a
said
whole
that,
brawl.
he did the Argentinian, I don't know what they called it, pole wrestler, Argentinian version of the pole
Yeah,
wrestler, and it was the best, one of the best performances I've ever seen. So I can't
grip
even say that
strength,
it's a
rock
weakness.
climber.
Actually, I do have one. Do some trivia. Definitely lots of trivia.
I listen. I would suck at that as well. So I mean, I'm the last person that can judge.
I mean, how much we've seen in your interviews, they go, I had about 3 weeks to get ready, right? And
Yeah,
when you have 3 weeks, you're concentrating on endurance, you're concentrating cardio, maybe some physical and wrestling because he doesn't need to worry about that stuff. I don't know when he would have been able to squeeze in and go, maybe there's going to be one trivia challenge at some point throughout the entire season and focus on that. But I mean, that proved to be the thing. I guess he's lucky and we're lucky going forward in the global challenge that they probably don't do trivia that
yeah.
often. And I'm wondering when you have a cast of UK, Argentina, Australia, and America, what trivia they can actually do, right? Because like you said, when we did the trivia previously, you were like, I don't know Australian stuff because I'm from New Zealand and South Africa, right?
Yeah.
They're not, what global universal trivia can they give to these people and make it feel culturally fair? Is that a
Yeah,
weird?
well, I
Is that a
think
weird?
I think with the USA, a lot of the pop culture is something that people in Australia know about. It's
Is
kind of global
Argentina?
in any case. Argentina, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for the
Yeah.
Argentinian side, but US pop culture is quite universal. Like everybody
Hey, you
knows
know
who
what?
Michael Jordan
Because
is. You know.
there's no spoilers, I know, so we're being sneaky here. But Troy, I know it's already happened, so I hope you went well, mate.
Yeah. No, we won't be talking about any spoilers, but and not that I know.
As
In any
trivia come
case,
up,
I don't know the
yeah, we don't
results.
know
So
anything.
the only thing I know is I do know who's going to be on the cast, and I do know who's paired with who. And I did throw a cheeky question at Troy about who he'd like to see and who he wouldn't like to see. Having that
To
in
see if
mind,
you,
that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. I won't go
very,
further than
very
that.
good,
But
very
I was
good.
like,
I like that.
I'll throw a cheeky question in there.
You should have just been like
Um,
this. You'd be like, "Come on, come
yeah.
on, man,
Let's talk a
show
little
me,
bit about Kiki.
give me
Let's talk a
something."
little bit about Kiki because
Kiki,
we've given
do
a lot
you
of love to
love me?
Troy. Troy obviously won the show and did extremely well. I think hats off to him for that challenge. I mean, the elimination. I just want to say again for those who haven't listened to the interview, it took an hour. I think that second round and the first was half an hour or vice versa, but it was about an hour and a half of him being out there getting battered and to see his face and swollen afterwards. He said the medical team had to check him out and he tried to downplay how bad it was because he didn't want them to withdraw him from the finale due to a
Crazy.
concussion. And if you look at rugby, like, I mean, I'm a massive rugby union fan. I don't know if you follow rugby league, rugby union, but in rugby union, if you get a concussion in that, your game's done. Like, there's so many protocols around it, and the challenge does not have those same protocols, man. So he could have very easily been pulled from it. We saw Ben Driebergen get pulled from a finale in the Challenge USA. So, with his ribs. So there was a lot of walking wounded, and he had to go straight from that into a finale. Absolutely insanity.
That's
Insanity.
unfair.
No nutrition before it.
That's completely unfair. And for him to win under those circumstances is huge. I think, like you saw in his confessionals, he's got freaking like the scars still on his nose and stuff. And I mean, we talked about the elimination, but I'm a big boy, Chris, and I know what I can do to physically throw smaller guys around. Like I'm not strong or anything, but just pure mass and physics says that a guy like Troy, who's literally getting like, I watch a lot of UFC and stuff. I know you've got a martial arts background.
Yeah.
Some of these slams I've seen in real fights, and they're gone. They're knocked out. Like a pick up and full body slam, body on top, destroys people. Like it breaks backs. It makes you unconscious. There's concussions, as he said. Like, and he got about 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, it was insane.
While doing endurance over 2 hours, and then ran. It's one of, like, for everyone out there that says the Challenge Australia was not great, I think there's a lot of validity to that. But when you come to the finale, and even if you complain about the format of the finale or whatever, like I've already said, it wasn't as grand and on the scale.
I don't think many people are complaining about that finale format. Honestly, I've mainly seen love on the format of the finale. But one thing I will say is we talked about it earlier in our podcast in the season that they should have had that elimination, that physical one, a hall brawl or something earlier in the season to get people really hyped up for it. Because let's be honest, it's kind of like one of those ones. It's like Brooke said, it's like, you kind of want it to be over. It's a train wreck, but you can't help yourself but watch a train wreck happening,
Well, we had an elimination like that, and 11,000 people or whatever it was on the Monday night saw it, and it's such a shame.
It's such a shame. Yeah, like more people need to see it. I have posted it on the Nullified Take TikTok channel as one of my favorite eliminations of all time because I'm posting different eliminations. So that's on there. So hopefully more people. It's about 1,000 people, 1,500 people that have viewed that on there as well. So hopefully we can get more people excited and wanting to go watch it at a later stage.
Then they can come back to this as well. The podcast.
Yeah, hopefully.
But one of the things as well, like you said, if they had done it earlier.
Yeah,
I think one thing that took away from it slightly, and not to take away from Troy and Conrad at all, but one of the good things about the challenge with their eliminations in the pit and the arena and the whatever they call that thing for the season, it's added to by having the crowd in the stadium screaming and cringing and reacting, and we certainly got that from Connor and stuff. But there's only 4 of them up there, or like
it's a small group.
It was a small group, and I think, like you said, if we had some of these bigger, impactful eliminations and challenges earlier in the season, maybe it might have bit a little bit more into the the social consciousness of Australians to have that battle thing, that the warrior spirit in whatever it is. Maybe that might have been a bit of a hook. Like,
the second most exciting one was for me Sugar versus Emily, and Sugar beating her, and then obviously them still being eliminated at the end of the day because Ryan couldn't beat Grant. But that was still a very exciting elimination to see as well. I do want to move on to Kiki though, because we did say we were going to talk about Kiki a little bit here. Troy here says, I call Kiki the gift that just keeps giving. She's a gem. She came in as an unknown to me this season. I've never watched any Bachelor, never watched any dating shows. It's not my thing. It's not my jam. It's not what I get into. It's why the Karen drama with his girlfriend or the Megan and Conrad hooking up in the jacuzzi wasn't that appealing to me, but some people may have enjoyed that. But Kiki came in wanting to prove herself as a competitor, wanting to do really well on the challenge. She ended up, I believe, with 1 daily win and 3 arena wins, or 2 arena wins as well. She was in there a few times as well. So not a bad competitor at all, doing extremely well getting to the finale. Had a back injury pretty much throughout the whole season. And man, oh man, did she have a lot of heart going into that finale, because I actually didn't think she was even going to pull through.
Look, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say I've watched many seasons of the challenge, and I know it's the first season of Australia, and everyone's rookies, but Troy and Kiki specifically, we heard her say multiple times in her confessionals, "I'm going up against an Olympic gold medalist, a
Mm.
boxer, and I do makeup, right?" Then couple that with the back injury. I think Troy and Kiki are two of the best rookie seasons in the history of the challenge, and
Rookie
they're all
competitors, you
rookies,
mean?
rookie competitors, like across the set to get Troy with 4 dailies, one of the best elims ever, and then a final win. Kiki with her elim wins, go eliminating Emily Seabom
Yep.
with that massive back end. Like some the early
And
episodes,
and
I
not
didn't.
just Emily, also Marley, who's also a
Yep,
professional athlete, basketball player as well within that group. And then,
and then
um, yeah,
going in
David
the
and
final
Jessica
against
was the
Brooke.
other one that they won as well.
Yeah,
So
and it was great. I think she had an amazing season, and that story of her back injury, the way she looked like she could barely even move in one of the earlier
mm,
episodes, like she was like struggling that badly to then not only get to the final, like we've seen so many people say, "Oh, if I can get to the final with my injury," and then they injure out, or they like when Casey hurt a knee, or things like that, they have to stop because the final is so grueling.
yeah,
And she pushed through it and then beat Brooke J. I think it's an
that's
amazing
impressive.
performance. It is. Like, name another rookie in the US who had seasons like that, overcome what she overcame. First of all, she was pretty good as far as social because she was in the dominant alliance for the majority of the season,
Yeah.
right? And then overcoming that injury, probably I don't know what the rep is or the vibe is on Brittany, but I don't think going to the final Kiki was seen as a favorite by anyone. I don't know about herself even because she said multiple times that I'm going up against these big hitters and I
Well,
shouldn't
she
be
didn't win
here and
that
blah
many
blah blah.
dailies. She won the one
One day
daily,
you want to win it,
right,
yeah,
going into
that's
it.
for
So she
sure.
didn't have that massive target on her because of that. But you bring up a good point. My knowledge or history of rookies in the challenge, especially when it gets to those earlier seasons prior to season 16 or whenever Fresh Meats 2 was, is not the greatest. But I don't know many female competitors that came in and won on their rookie season. Obviously, all of them were rookies this time. I know Amber B did come into a
Hmm.
rookie season, but she had CT, which is
GTT, that's
a
right.
massive benefit to run a final with CT. So outside of that, I mean, you're right, definitely up there as one of the more impressive performances. Obviously, for the men, we had Turbo, who was extremely impressive on his first season. He kind of flamed
But
out a little bit.
in his first season, I don't think he saw an elimination.
No, he didn't, but
He
that's
was in
impressive.
that poorly Cara Maria, and they kind of ran the
Yeah,
game, and he did win. It's very
he won a
impressive, and
lot of
it's impressive to
dailies,
stay out.
and he won a lot of
He
dailies
won
with
a lot of
Nani.
dailies. He's very good, but he's a psycho, and I don't
Well,
like
he
him.
won with Nani. I'm just going to say that again. So
That's true. That's true. But yeah, I think both of them, to put them on the world stage and have them be our representatives for the challenge, I'm super happy and I'm super proud.
yeah.
Kiki, like yeah, I don't know,
One
like
one thing one thing I was a little bit disappointed with when it got to the end, the finale, it felt a bit rushed because it was a 40-minute episode, and I didn't
it
really
really
get to see
was.
final thoughts or words from Brooke J. I feel like she played a very good game. Obviously, being a big Survivor fan, she was one of the people I was shouting for until the end. I wanted her to win the show. Happy for Kiki, obviously, and she's an amazing winner, an amazing person for all the things we've just said. But we didn't even get final words from her, and I'm sure she was devastated. But there was nothing like that. There was no final words from
Me
Connor.
neither.
Connor was
Yeah.
a massive presence this season. Like, I mean, I think going into the finale, Connor was probably the biggest personality with the biggest edit going into this finale, and we didn't get
Yeah,
anything from him.
I'm very impressed with Connor as well, considering what his reputation was early on, as far as thinking he might be a bit of a layup to get to the final and do what he's done. Across the board, Chris, I keep finding these people. I'm like, the season, whatever. And then when you look at some of the individual performances, I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's a strong season. Maybe that there's, but I'm getting contemplative here, Chris. I'm sorry, but we talk about with the US shows, right? And there are always these big personalities that standalone. They don't need the introductions, like you said. They don't need the background. We know who they are because they're essentially in the world of reality TV and the challenge and MTV. They're superstars. We didn't have that, but that is not the entire show of these American ones, right? There's still always these people that at the end of the season you go, who? Right? And every
Yeah.
reality show has that. There are the people that stand out and there are the people that thing. So the more I look back, I go, early on eliminations, there were some good characters there. By the end of the season, we love Connor, we love Troy, we love Kiki. The people that got eliminated, like even like an Emily, I don't think was great TV, but she's clearly a strong competitor. Like we saw some really strong people throughout this show. It just didn't necessarily coalesce to be a fantastic product for Australians. But I do think when I go down the list, I go, you know
And I've
what?
got
They
another
had some
theory
great
for that,
moments.
actually.
Yep.
That's just coming up while sort of let me
Yeah.
riff off you while you're sort of contemplating
Please.
about all of this. The Challenge USA had like a very definitive couple of groups going into that season. You had Survivor, you had Love Island, you had a couple of Amazing Race, and then you had Big Brother, which made for interesting TV because the people who went there already had bad blood. You had Big Brother people who betrayed each other. You had, people who wanted to go out there for revenge because of the alliance that was formed in that season and the fact that they fell out on that.
True.
You had Survivor people who had beef coming into it because Tyson was voted out more than once by Sarah, for instance. You had all of these different things that made for a great storyline and a
Hey,
cohesive
in
plot.
Australia, they all said they'd slept with each other at some point. It's
Hmm.
they had history of exes and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But, no,
But clearly, that's not what the fans wanted to see when it came to a competitive
true.
reality TV show. And that's my problem. It's like, yes, I understand there's a pocket of challenge fans that like that, but the show has evolved a lot
has.
since then, and it's a different show now, and they're also marketing it as a competitive reality TV show. Now, I understand there's always going to be, like I told you, people that going to love Conrad and Megan hooking up in the bathtub. That's not what gets my that's not why I watch the challenge. I watch it for great strategic play. I watch it for the bad blood. I watch it for the competitiveness. There are people who love it, like I know that, but I feel like most people in Australia didn't gravitate towards it. And the
You like
people
it
who
as
watched them on The
well?
Bachelor, people who liked the Married at First Sight, that audience did not follow over to the challenge. They weren't interested.
No. I like it as garnish. It's not my main. I prefer
Yeah,
the
it could be a
competitive
little
as
bit of
main.
that. It's okay.
Little bit,
I understand.
Just salt
Yeah.
bait it on top of that, right?
Yeah,
But
you can't build a franchise on the
around
hookups.
it, no, you
You know,
can't.
you got to build
I
the
agree with
franchise
that.
on strategy. You got to build the franchise on people that are competitors, that side of it. And I think it was lacking because you had so many different people from different shows, and a lot of them weren't from strategic shows. But I feel like I'm kind of flogging a dead horse right
We've
now
done that
because
one
we've
a
said
lot.
we've said it so many times. I
It's
do want to
left a
bring up
sour
here.
taste, hasn't it?
Yeah, I do want to bring up here. Troy says Kiki solved the puzzle in lit. So he had a previous comment here. He said yes, it was rushed. That's the finale. They cut a whole chain puzzle segment in the second leg. Kiki solved the puzzle in literally 2 minutes and helped us get the lead. In leg 2, it was the same puzzle as on Ride or Dies episode 9 with the cubes. I've heard some people comment online. Those are some of the international fans that are watching it, that they found it to be unimaginative because of the fact that they kept regurgitating the same challenges within the two shows. Obviously, it was for production cost, and I don't think that the average Australian fan who is not a challenge fan would have even noticed.
No, I mean the average Australian fan doesn't exist, um, and no one watched it, so that doesn't matter, which is a massive shame.
It is a
Again,
shame, yeah.
but
Massive opportunity here. I don't get again. I've got absolutely, like you said, I've spoken to Channel 10, but predominantly just from being able to do interviews, and I'm so thankful. I don't know if they're listening to this podcast. If they are, I've already sent you both an email to thank you for the opportunity this season to do the interviews. It was really fun to get to know some of these contestants, and obviously for a podcast like myself who's still growing, we really appreciate that. And I always will be truthful to my thoughts and opinions about the show, but I don't think Channel 10 looks at this as a failure on their behalf because it was like a shared production thing that they've done with the main. And again, I don't know how much Troy can talk to or not. I have a feeling that the main production team in the editing department and whoever run it was really the main company who does the challenge. It wasn't really a Channel 10 led thing. Yeah, like for instance, you would see with the Australian Survivor, it is more Channel 10 led. and they run the whole thing. And I also think that's why the flavor of the show was slightly different. The casting was different. The editing was slightly different, more familiar to what you see in the US, but it wasn't Channel 10 didn't own the project fully, I don't think. And
Yeah,
again,
no.
I might be talking out of turn, but that's the vibe I got from it.
I think you're right there. I think it's more a B&M production from MTV than it is a Channel 10 production. They kind of just got the distribution rights as opposed to the putting
Yeah.
it on rights. That's my vibe as well. Um,
But Channel 10, if you're listening to this, if those people are still listening to this podcast, then I really hope you pick it back up. I do think
I do
that there
too.
is an opportunity with the challenge, and there are some people now, great people like Troy, great people like Connor. I don't know if Brooke will come back, but there's some great people that you've now developed and brought onto the show that the fans will know who they are next time. If you sprinkle that with some of the right competitors from other shows like Big Brother, maybe more American Ninja Warrior, because they did pretty well on this, and then maybe some Survivor. I think Survivor was the missing ingredient, that you needed a few more of those bigger names like a David Gannat, Luke Toki, Dirty Harry, who, by the way, is a massive fan of the challenge. I'm gutted that he wasn't on. I think
Yeah.
if he could, I don't know if he was asked or not, but I think if he could, he would have been on it.
I think they could do even though Emily has the background of being on I'm a Celebrity, I think they could do the athlete route like Sugar and Billy as well. Like that on Survivor, they always love that. Like
Yeah.
whether they're known celebrities or not, they can say I'm an AFL player, and I'm like, I don't know any AFL players, but
they're
I get that he's
they're very rarely the exciting people that you look forward to
that's
watching the
true.
show for.
They need more
Like
rugby
Matt
league players
Rogers.
then. No, yeah,
Matt Rogers is like the exception. He's the
Matt
exception,
Rogers
and
is good. Yeah,
Abby was decent. I thought Abby was decent, but
I think
I
Abby
feel
would be
like
good on the challenge.
yeah, I think she would. But I
Yeah.
think in general, they're not the exciting people that you like to see on the show, when they're these celebs or they've done this thing, because they also don't understand the strategic part of the game and maybe aren't as willing to make moves when they need to make those moves in the game, which can lead to a little bit of a boring result when you get these athletes going in there. And especially if they overpower some of the more strategic players that you could throw in there. But a massive opportunity for you, Channel 10, to still take the show, add
I'd
it
be
back on, give it another shot.
I would love to be a fly in the wall at Channel 10. First of all, when they were making those casting decisions and choosing a direction and go, we're going to do the Bachelorette thing, we're going to do the maths thing, and that's going to be predominant. And then someone goes, but we'll make all the marketing material competitive, right? And I also want to see what would have been said after the ratings came out every episode, because it is such a we say it again, we're going down the same path. It's such a waste. It's such a shame. It's a thing that we love and I think has huge potential, and it just fell completely flat. And it happens in the world. I just hate that it happened to a show that I love.
100%. Yeah.
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 So I don't know. Like overall, I love the season. There's some big personalities that came, and as well, in a season of America a season of America, a season of an American show like The Challenge or even like a Survivor or whatever, you only ever get a few really memorable characters that they'll then bring back for a All Stars or if villains versus heroes, or even The Challenge brings them back every season. A lot of people don't get called back because they give them a shot. Turns out they were pretty shit on camera. So, and TJ will usually say, I'm sure we'll see you in the future. Or sometimes he just goes, it ends the time in the challenge, goodbye. And like he did not like that person. I think I'm getting all distracted here. I'm a million thoughts at once, Chris, because we're finishing the season. But another big shame. I said it's a shame that it's going to miss out on a lot of potential. But I think one of the biggest losses is Bryony as well. I think they really grew.
We haven't
the
spoken
role.
about Bryony. And,
Yeah.
and yes, so glad that you brought them up, because I would have completely forgotten to mention it. I loved Bryony this season.
Absolutely.
There was a really big thing on social pushing the first non-binary host, and I think you were a little bit worried about that when you heard that in the beginning. You're like, oh, there might be people within the community that's going to think it's going to be a push towards it being a woke show. I don't think that it was ever about Bryony's identity, and I don't think they ever made a point of making the show woke because Bryony was on there. I thought Bryony did an extremely good job as a host, and you're right. Hopefully, if the show doesn't get picked up, Bryony gets picked up to do another show, because I do think they've got amazing talent for being a host, and how they interacted with the cast throughout the season was just a lot of fun, and it had a real Aussie flavor to it. There were certain parts where you could see the Aussie flavor come through, like, the cast throwing Bryony into the mud, which was a lot of fun. Bryony being like just part of that sort of a group of people and not kind of above them is something that I really enjoyed. And I also liked when they did the commentary throughout the season. Like, I actually did enjoy hearing that.
Yeah, every time Conrad slammed Troy, and then Bryony's like, "Oh, big slam in the sand." It's so good. It's so good. I do love that stuff. I think, yeah, they're a talented host, and people said that in the first episode they felt a bit stilted, but Bryony grew into that role exponentially and became a fantastic host by the end. The fact that you're saying Aussieisms, I think, is one of the things I love most about this season as well. Is that I got to watch the challenge, and I may never get to watch the challenge Australia again, unfortunately. But I do know that I got to watch the challenge, and it was the challenge. It was the American show with all my local flavor and Aussieisms, like in the final, yeah, in the final. Kiki
We'll
said,
get to see some of these people that came on to play this season on the main show, guaranteed. They're going to take some of these people, they're going to put them into the main show.
flagship, yeah.
Troy was on the interview and he said, I want to play in the main show. And I think that's going to happen. I think that there'll be an opportunity for some of these players, and I think at the very least it's going to be lucrative for MTV that they've widened their pool of people that they can now select for the main show.
And like I said, there's a sliver of hope that maybe they'll bring it back just to have that farm league for the main, so they can go, well, we got this person from the Challenge Australia as opposed to Romania's Got Talent or something.
They need to open it up to, like, I don't think you could get this on Paramount Plus in the US. And I feel like that was also a missed opportunity, because I do feel like people would have watched it via the legitimate channels, because there is a high likelihood that there were more people watching the show outside of Australia than actually in Australia, especially with those viewing numbers of 11,000 viewers, because like,
more
we
people
get close
watching
to
the YouTube recaps.
Well, exactly. We get on the podcast and the audio version combined, we get a tenth of that. We get about 1,000 people listening or watching different things on our podcast. So, like, you can't tell me that there isn't a way bigger audience out there that isn't following the show. And Sandy here in the live, also welcome to the live, is saying, I feel like Challenge Australia is like the old school MTV Challenge. They take people from non-physical shows and throw them into this physical competition. It brings drama and competition. And I agree. I feel like it probably has that old school vibe to it. But we sort of spoke about it earlier. It didn't necessarily translate to an Australian audience and the climate of what Australians like to watch when it comes to reality TV.
There's also the thing of that you mentioned before, that the challenge itself has evolved from those times, right? And they did take non-competitive drama-based people and put them in a competitive environment, but they were doing challenges like, let's rub this ice with our crotch until it disappears. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were literally doing like
backyard games.
Yeah, like, and some of these are like a touch on that, but on a much bigger scale. But the athletic competitive side of the challenge has increased exponentially, and Australian challenge seemed like definitely had that. I do think some of the challenges we saw were brutal and physical, and obviously an exact copy, or not exact copy, but the exact same ones that the Americans doing, right? So we're doing the same challenge, but we're casting it as if it was real world road rules. Yeah, so I don't know, but I mean, back in the day, they didn't have a Emily Seebohm, a Troy, a Sugar. Like, they're still mixing in the strong athletes. A Brooke Jowett is a strong competitor. It's not 100%. Yeah, Marley.
I'm going to keep mentioning Marley as much as I can, because I want to see Marley on the main show. Make it happen, MTV.
You know what I think you need to do, Chris? I don't know if this is a thing, and I'm getting you in a bit of trouble here. You should host a Zoom virtual reunion show.
Oh, what, with all of the challenge contestants?
Well, as many as you can get. Like, they're not doing a reunion. They're not doing anything.
If they're keen to do it, yeah, like, if they're keen to do it, Troy loves Marley too. Yeah, I'd love to chat to Marley at some stage. I sadly couldn't make it happen. I had it lined up to talk to him, and then our schedules couldn't match on the day where we were supposed to do the exit interview. So hopefully I can like circle back and get Marley on the show at the very least. But loved Marley on Big Brother, loved him on this season. I felt really bad when he left, and that's when automatically Troy became the man, because I was like, Troy's got to like do it for both Marley and himself at the end. But yeah, I'd love to do it, man. Like if I don't know
really
how
enjoyed
difficult it
your
is to
interviews.
I don't know
I
how
really
difficult it
enjoyed.
is to get I don't know how difficult it is to get everybody together. Sorry, you were going to say you enjoyed
Probably
the
super
interviews?
difficult. Probably really.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed your interviews. I really enjoy the behind the scenes stuff. I'm a bit of a nerd that way, where I like to see I want to know what's happening behind the scenes and not what camera gave us, because
Yeah.
apparently, according to Troy, there's a lot. So I want to hear that stuff. Like, I would love to be able to, like we said
We need to get
before,
Connor
right?
on as well, because I feel like as soon as we
Connor would
get
be
Connor on
huge.
the show, we'll find out some of the realty. So at some point, hopefully, we can get Connor on to come and have a chat as well, because I feel like
Yeah,
he'll tell us.
if there's anyone that would be able to do like a long format where we can just go, what about this? And what did they do here? And why did they do this? And was this really like that? That would be like my dream, to be able to just like I often look forward to the reunion shows of the challenge more than the original thing, just to
Yeah.
get that insight behind the scenes. And they end up in a bit of a screaming match and more
Yeah.
drama in of itself. But I'm not down for that necessarily. But I am interested in seeing people's insights and thoughts on the whole production process and what their mentality was going to like. That stuff is just as fascinating as seeing the actual show play out as well, to me.
Yeah. All right, it's that time now where we're going to be doing some spoilers. So if you are still in here, you don't want to know about spoilers of who's going to be on the global show.
Let me see if I can guess.
No, wait before you say anything.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a countdown from 5. After that, we are going to go into spoilers, not placement, because I don't know placement. I don't want to know placement because it will make the show boring to watch for me. And I love being wrong. I love being like, this person's clearly winning, because I thought Emily was winning at one stage this season. She didn't. So, I like being wrong about it. And then, the only thing I sort of look at is who's going to be on the cast, and potentially we may go into who's partnered with her as well. But if I can remember, I don't think I can remember everybody's partners, but we'll definitely talk about who's on the show. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of here. We're spoiling. Yeah, we need like one of those buzzers like Rob has a podcast for Big Brother, I believe it is, or something.
Bell thing.
Whenever they've got the live feeds, it's like, this is a spoiler, special announcement. It's amazing. All right, so we know that Troy's coming back. We know that Kiki is coming back. Kiki is coming back with her injured back. She said she's still struggling with that 2 days. So I hope it's not affecting her too much in the season, but chances are it could come back to haunt her when she plays. But the 2 people that are coming back from the season that I'm shocked about.
Yes.
You go for it. I'm shocked. I didn't expect to see them. Like, I mean, one of them not too shocked, but one of them I'm like semi-shocked, and the other one I'm really shocked.
So they're sending 4, right? 2 winners and +2, male, female.
Yes. And you legitimately don't know who they are?
No.
Okay, go for it. Guess.
Who is it? Is it
There's
more
many
finalists?
people.
Is it more finalists?
It's 2 non-finalists, it's 2 non-finalists, which is why I was shocked, because I thought they'd have, like, Brooke has come out on social to say she couldn't make it happen. There was other stuff going on, which I find interesting. Let's just put that out there, because if she won, she would have had to go back to play. So I feel like she didn't like the experience, and I'm talking on her behalf. I don't know, but I feel like she didn't like the experience as much or something, and she decided to move on.
Oh no,
she's not on. The spoilers have come out. She's not on Survivor, unless she's on the next US or something. No, not even on the US. But yeah, I think she just passed on it.
So that means we have. So who got eliminated? Right, there was a Conrad.
Do you want me to bring up the cast? I'll bring up the cast for you here. That'll make it a little bit easier.
I don't think Conrad's boring. Brooke B, no. To be able to, okay, let's go through males.
So pretty much you can have anyone from Conrad and Brooke B down. Anybody down there could have come back on this season.
Okay, so the fact that I'm going to use some
gun to the head.
Deduction here.
Gun to the head. Who do you choose?
Well, I would choose who I would want is either Marley or Johnny. But I know because you're banging on about Marley so much that he's definitely not in.
He's not on, and Johnny's not on either. So they didn't go for those 2 ones. They didn't go for the most.
Anyone before them, because that's just way too early. Like, you wouldn't have a David or something, and he wouldn't be able to compete either, unfortunately. So it's Conrad, Grant, Ryan, but he's no. Conrad or Grant?
Yeah, so
Conrad
I'm
or
going to give it
Grant?
to you because I don't want this to drag
Grant.
on too long.
Conrad.
Grant's coming back.
Grant.
Um,
Crap.
and yeah, crap. Grant's coming back. Listen,
Emily.
I've got
Emily.
nothing against the guy. I'd love to even have a chat with him if he ever wanted to chat. But as a TV
Emily or
personality, he
Brittany?
didn't.
Oh no, not
He
finalist. Emily's the other side.
Yeah, Grant didn't do much for me as a TV personality on the show. I wasn't really like Team Grant or anything like that. He seemed to really struggle with all the partners that he worked with. Seemed very stubborn. So he's probably a super nice guy. I mean, I don't. I'm talking about the edit. Just didn't do much for me, so I wasn't overly excited when I heard that he came back. But I think between him and Ryan, he's probably the less problematic choice to come back and play again. So that's
Oh,
why
the
they
twins.
went that
Yeah,
way.
for sure.
Yeah, if I had my choice, I would have wanted Marley or Johnny to come back, similar to you. For the females, who do you think is coming back?
I really wish it was Cyrell.
Yeah, it's
Sorrel.
not Sorrel.
Imagine sending her Cyclone Sorrel to the US would be insane. I think it's
Yep.
Emily. I think they'll want to put
Yeah,
a
it's
gold
Emily.
medalist.
It's obvious.
Yeah.
It's obvious. So Emily obviously was a big personality. Now Emily is one that I do think a lot of what she was trying to do strategy wise, trying to play the game, she was a bit forceful and not didn't have like a lot of tact on how she was doing it. But I think you're going to need to be that cutthroat and aggressive in your gameplay when you play in the US because those players are all seasoned. They've played for a lot of game shows for a long time. She may fit in better with that fast-paced game plan over there, especially if she doesn't isolate herself with some of the other people like she did in this season. Maybe she can get into a better spot and she could potentially still be dangerous because I kind of feel like she never really reached her potential. So I'm interested to see what she could do on the show. And from a personality standpoint, Emily definitely gave me more in the confessionals. Like I'm kind of excited to see how she mixes us up with some of these other cast members.
She's a physical beast. And I wonder if she might be a bit Jenny West, where we know
Yeah,
she's
could
physical and
be.
could actually win, but they never brought her back after a winning season because I don't think she's that great on TV. But I don't know. Like, if it's Emily, I think that's a very good representation physically. And maybe if she can get paired with a more savvy veteran as far as strategy goes, but also politics. So if she can get with someone like a Bananas if he's in the season. I don't know who's been cast yet. Or like a Wes or something that can carry her strategically and she just has to contribute to the challenges and the dailies and things like that. I think she could go pretty far if she can get with the right partner.
Yeah.
I also don't know
I've got
how
to be
much.
very careful now because I'm screening. I'm sort of scrolling through who's on the cast, but they always warn you don't go beyond this if you don't want to see elimination. So I don't want to go beyond that. And for some other reason, I don't remember who's paired with who. We've got Sandy in the live chat here, who called both Grant and Emily. So I've got a suspicion he knows who's on the season. So Sandy, if you're still in the live and you know who's teamed with who, let us know in the live who's teamed with who without giving us any spoilers. Like we said, we don't want to know who's eliminated or anything like that. I do know who Troy's teamed with because Troy's teamed with another person that I really enjoy and always annoyed both Angel Cake Drew and Chantel on the chat. Actually, I think Drew was with me on this one. He
I know
also
who it
likes
is then. I know who it is then.
It's Amber. It's Amber B from
Oh,
Big
Amber.
Brother.
Oh, I was wrong then. I thought you were
So
going
he's
to go
teamed.
down. I thought it was Sarah.
No, there's no. So he's with Amber B. I know that, and
Amber B's
I'm a
good.
fan of Amber. I really enjoy Amber. She's a champion. She's won one season. I haven't watched Ride or Die the last 3 episodes, so I don't know what's happening.
You might not like her as much.
Oh, really? I haven't watched. I've got to catch up on the last 3 episodes.
I love Amber as well. I think she's great. I think she's a very good competitor. I think she's okay, like as far as but I think she, for some reason, like
I didn't even know that.
the
So
cast
look
the
at
wrong
this
way.
here. So Sandy is
Troy
with
initially with Amber,
with Emily,
Casey.
Troy initially with Amber, but then changed to Casey. So obviously don't know how that happened. That's new news to me because like I said, I know nothing about.
Oh yes, with Emily, capital Y. I was like yes with Emily. It's like yes, the person.
Yes, with Emily. Right, yeah. And who's Grant with?
That's good. They're good partners for both.
And who's Kiki with? That would be interesting to know who Grant and Kiki is with as well. Because I can't scroll down. Like there was a point where you could see it without knowing the elimination order, and I don't like now it's gone. So I don't know. He forgot the other two as well. Okay, and I don't want you to spoil yourself, Sandy. I don't want you to spoil yourself either. So we'll stay spoiler free on those.
Kiki gets a Jordan or something like that.
Yeah, well, that would be good for her. If she gets with Jordan, and
Danny is Danny one, right? He's in it. Danny, Sarah,
Yeah,
Do
and
we?
Grant gets Anissa. That would be perfect.
Is
Anissa
she on
always
it?
gets
She's
the.
not on it.
I don't know if she's on. No, I don't think she is. But I mean, she always gets the partners who don't listen to her. I guess Jordan and her, from up until where I've seen, they've worked pretty well together. But yeah, exciting. Like I can't wait to talk about it. I will say this: I'm not planning on covering the Argentinian version and the UK version. The only reason that I
Okay.
did cover, the only reason I did cover the Australian version is because I was able to get some of the exit press and the exit interviews on here. So I made sure that I did cover it on this channel, but I will cover the global season. Kahuna, maybe you and I will come back and talk about Ride or Dies as a whole, like we did here at the end of the
If you'll
season.
have
I think
me.
let's do an overview of that, and then
Chris, you can
maybe
count me as your ride or die now.
you're my ride or die. You're like, you're tethered to me no matter what. You're going down with a ship here, But we'll be back to talk about, I think, Ride or Dies. We'll talk about that in the finale, and what we thought of that season. I'll definitely catch up now that there's one less show for me to keep on top of. Slowly but surely, the shows are starting to die out, and I will have a couple of weeks of rest before we get back into the new seasons coming out. But future content for the challenge. We will be covering some future content here. So if you've enjoyed hearing myself and Kahuna talk about the challenge, we're planning on doing more content. So when these future seasons come up in the US, like the global season, the Challenge 39, All Stars 4, maybe, count on us. We potentially will be back to talk about some of that. Yeah, there's some great casting rumors around All Stars 4 at the moment floating around as well. Yeah, so that pretty much is it here for this season. If you like this content and you want to see more of it in the future, the best way you can support this channel is to subscribe. We're still a young, new channel that is getting pretty close to 1 year now being on YouTube. It's been one hell of a ride. We've really enjoyed the support this season, even though the ratings dropped for the main show, the viewership numbers always remain very strong for the content that we put on the channel. So thank you to everybody that's been watching, listening on the audio platform, anybody that commented, reached out during this time. We really appreciate all of you for doing that. Consider hitting a like on this video as well. That does help with the YouTube algorithm. Also check out Kahuna TV. You can find his channel at the bottom of my channel at the other awesome channels section. I don't think Kahuna has done anything on there yet, but if we have enough people subscribing,
There's some old stuff on there. There's some old.
We will peer pressure him into doing something and streaming live on there again. But for now, thank you for everybody in the live. Really appreciate you, lovable Nikki, Sandy, Troy. Thank you for being a part of the conversation as well. Look forward to having some more chats with you, Troy, in the future whenever you can talk about it. And for now, we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.
See ya.